Om Yam Brahma Varnendra Rudra Marutaha Stunbanti de Boy Vedai Sangapada Kramo Panashadoi Gayanti Yam Samagaha Dhyan Avashtita Tadgatena Manasha Pashanti Yam Yogino Yashantum Naviduhu Sura Suragana Devaya Tashmai Namaha Om Shantihi Shantihi Shantihi. Our eternal salutations to that one who is the truth of life and existence, and whom the saints and seers of various religious traditions call by different names. Our eternal salutations to that one whose glories are sung in the different hymns of the scriptures of the religious traditions of the world, but whose undying grandeur no mortal mind can comprehend. Our eternal salutations to that one upon whom the devotees meditate in the shrine of their hearts, realizing an ineffable presence in their deepest contemplations. May he prompt our minds toward the path of truth and righteousness. May she reveal herself into our souls and dispel the gloom of death, fear, doubt, and darkness. Om, peace, peace, peace. Om Indram Mitram Matarato Divyaha Sasuparno Garutuman Ekam Sat Vipra Bahuda Vedantya Agnim Yaman Matarishvanamahu. Om Shantihi Shantihi Shantihi. To that one indivisible, all-pervasive being, the seers assign many a title, such as the waters of life, the sacred atmospheres of existence, the fire of yoga, the devourer of death, the eternal companion, the winged carrier of consciousness, and the one who shines forth the light. Om, peace, peace, peace. Om Sahana, Om Sahana Vavatu, Sahanau Bhunaktu, Sahaviryam Karvavahai, Tejasvi Navaditamastu, Ma Vidvishuvahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May Brahman, that reality, protect us. May Brahman sustain us. May Brahman illumine our thinking consciousness. May we not find fault with each other, with the world, or with the teachings. And may what we study be a source of inspiration to us eternally. Om, peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us, and may peace be unto all. Om Hari Om. Salutations to all beings. To those who are closer in, like in this room today, in our ashram in Hawaii on the Big Island, we welcome you to the final class on the Eternal Companion. And to those watching live stream from America, points around Europe, I know some of you are watching, and India, and anywhere where interested people, that is, people who are interested in hearing the Dharma, and even dipping their consciousness, their minds in that ocean of awareness over and over again, as Thakur Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa has told us, are here on hand to hear about today's subject. It's the Eternal Companion, as I just chanted one of those names that the seers dawn upon non-dual reality. But we know it's non-dual, and it's qualified non-dual, and it's also dual. All these three plateaus of philosophy are included in the sweep of Indian Dharma. So those are my three great secrets, or my one great secret, as Swami Vivekananda said, that these three are steps, and you can go up them to the non-dual, and you can come back them to the dual. You want to be able to talk to everyone about this eternal Dharma, which outstrips anything, any scripture, written scripture in the world. It was recited, and the great rishis went into meditation and pulled it out of the inner ether, which they themselves had stored it in. You see, the rishis are like that. They go to take their last breath and go to their final rest, or maybe it's not their final rest. They may be coming back again to help. But what they do is they store all their wisdom deep inside. I call it self-storage. I even have a chart about it. You see that going along the freeway nowadays. You go, if a Vedantist goes by there has to be a couple jokes and laughs about that in the car. But that's one way of looking at it. You store it back in your own consciousness if you're a soul like that, and then when you come around next lifetime, you meditate and it comes forth. It appears like it's new, but there's nothing new under the sun, as we hear in Ecclesiastes and Christian tradition, Jewish tradition, and so forth. There's just this eternal Dharma, this eternal truth. And it's not many, it's one, but it appears in the many. So for the most refreshing and deep draught or drink of that refreshing nectar of non-dual truth, we go to the seers, and that's how we started this series of classes off. Thought, of all those things, Brahman, the ocean of consciousness, your Atman, which is your connection to Brahman and Vedanta, your own true self, not your ego self, but your true self. And then Ishvara and seers, the God with form. And then religion. All of these things should be your eternal companion. In a better world, they would be, as they say. But it reminds me of something I heard the other day. Somebody apologized to another person, said, "I'm sorry about what I did the other day." See? And I wasn't at my best. The man retorted or responded, "If we were all at our best, it'd be a much better world. If we were all at our best all the time." So that's what Dharma attempts to do, is put you at your best all the time. That is, your mind has to be in a fine and fettle condition, has to be clear, has to be in remembrance of things that people forget so easily nowadays. First of all would be to forget Brahman. Negligence of Brahman is how Shankar puts it in the Viveka Chudamani. You don't want to neglect remembrance of the underlying reality that's behind everything, which is formless and nameless. You have to admit that, and you have to have the experience of that too. That's the top tier of these three levels of consciousness. And if you call the three levels of consciousness your three steps of philosophy, non-duality or Advaita is that top step. And then you come down a bit from that. You might say that's where you really need an eternal companion. More is when you come down out of Brahman and you find yourself in form. So that's Atman covered with 5 layers. Krishna used to talk about the coconut, which has the kernel rattling around inside of it when it's ripe, but then on the outside of it there's these 5 layers. I've seen that. My Labrador dog used to tear that apart on the beach here in Hawaii and go through the outside layer and then get to the fiber, and then if the fiber would get to the shell, and the shell would get to the milk and so forth. And throw it in the water and go get it again and bring it back and just trim those sheaths right off. You see? So what the Vedantist needs to do, like a Labrador dog, tenacious like that, doggedly, if you will, has to take this coconut, as it were, with this inner kernel called the Atman, and get busy stripping these layers away. That's not suicide, and it's not death. It's actually eternal life you're moving towards when you discriminate away what's the non-self. So that only becomes necessary when you leave Brahman. That is when you take on a form, when you become other than you truly are. So Atman is that inner, that next step. You see, people question that in Vedanta. Oh, you have two words for reality, it confuses me. I thought you were non-dual. You say, well, yes, but there must be some way to explain this Maya that causes form, and name, and time, and space, and karma. There must be some name for that. We can't just ignore it. It'd be nice if we could, but it's not possible. You have to note it and stay distance from it, Sri Ramakrishna said. But you can't get in and study it, like, say, science is doing, and all the lower knowledges, you see, medicine and so forth. You forget the truth when you become focused only on one lower subject, which is called life, which is called making a living, which is called getting distracted to the seer. You can be many-sided, you can begin to fill yourself in, but there's a way of doing that spiritually called the 4 yogas. Make sure you fill in your higher wisdom, make sure you fill in your bhakti. Where's bhakti nowadays? Love of the Lord. It's out the window somewhere. Lord doesn't even exist for most people, or has become something that's been distorted by one of your eternal companions called religion. See, but it's not true religion. And then you have to fill out your meditative side, your contemplative side, because that's calling you through all this active life. And then you have to, in your actions, if you do fill out these 3 yogas, your actions will become dharmic, and you'll realize that knowledge is father to the deed. See? So this right action is very important, and it's a way of riding the cart. You see, putting the horse before the cart. Sorry, Mr. Descartes, the French philosopher. You must put the horse before the cart, because he said, "I think, therefore I am." That was one of the quotes of Descartes. But Vedanta came along and said, "No, I am, therefore I think." So if you're thinking of terms of active life, then yes, thought is father to the deed. The mind is the author of this whole universe. We talk about the eternal companion, right? And here's the book on the eternal companion, who is named Swami Brahmananda, was a good, fit representative, an exemplar of being our eternal companion. He's one of these great rishis, one of the 12 apostles of Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. And so he says here, in response to a question about doubt and praying to God, he says, this apparent universe is a creation of the mind. There's 2 things there. Shall I stop and expand on it for an hour? As I'm tempted to, but this apparent universe, underline apparent, is a creation of the mind. This mind has conjured it up. It is its author, and the mind cannot go beyond its own domain. So behind this mind, there's a subtle spiritual mind existing in seed form. We call that the causal. Through the practice of contemplation, prayer, japam, that's chanting the names of the Lord, mantra, this mind is developed. And with this development, a new vision opens up, and the aspirant realizes many spiritual truths. This, however, is not the final experience. The subtle mind leads the aspirant nearer to God, but it cannot reach God, called the Supreme Atman, Paramatman. I have a chart on that today. Having reached this stage, the world no longer holds any charm for the aspirant. He becomes absorbed in the consciousness of God, and this absorption leads to samadhi, an experience that can't be described. Well, the kind of answer you'd get from an eternal companion like Swami Brahmananda, who, by the way, if you read the Gospel of Ramakrishna, is that very young man named Rakal, who is so beloved of Sri Ramakrishna, called his spiritual son. He used to hug Rakal and pet him, like it was his own son, and sit in his lap, you see, and talk to him. And none of the other devotees enjoyed that much of a physical affection and closeness to Sri Ramakrishna as he did. So he's called the eternal companion for good reason. So anyway, this idea of Atman, Brahman, and meditation is what we're headed toward today in our final class. I can't quite leave off of the last tendrils of last week's class, though, because we were just finishing up the importance of the avatar and Ishvara, right? So this final chart or two is, and before I think of other things to say around this, because I'm already inspired to do so, let's look right away at this chart. Come in, enter, please take a seat. We have devotees coming and take these teachings. So what I really like to do is just tie a few loose ends from last class. I'm not going to spend a long time on this, I promise. And if I start to, then someone has to tell me, go like this for move along now, move along, buddy, like the police say, you see. So, but Ishvara, as it leads into Brahman, because we hear you get to the Father through the Son. That's one of the beautiful teachings in Christendom. And so this Son is, of course, the focus of spiritual life for the Bhakta, for the person who basically is a dualist. They think God and human beings are two different things. And this is not going to be fully acceptable to the non-dualist who thinks they're one thing. And it just appears to be two, like this apparent universe that's caused by the mind, as Rakal just told us in his answer to that question. They don't believe that. They really feel that it is apparent. And it's conjured by this very mind, and that the mind can't get beyond it. It's caught in its own devices. It's caught in a situation of its own doing. See, so in that way, there's got to be some sort of transcendent move, and the seers who realize this are able to get into the samadhi that he mentioned too. Nirvikalpa samadhi in Vedanta, asampragyata samadhi in yoga, which means seedless. It doesn't have any seeds to it, like other lower samadhis. In other words, it doesn't have wisdom seeds in it. It doesn't have seeds for procreation, or for creation of worlds, or for desires. Those seeds have all been burnt out. So this higher state to get into, Brahman-Atman connection there, is what he's talking about. And nirvana in Buddhism, although that was used in Sanskrit before Lord Buddha came to earth in that particular form, Shakyamuni. Satori in Zen, which is, of course, some 56 generations later after Lord Buddha came to earth. So you have words for it in all these religions. Unfortunately, in our westernized Christianity and conventional Judaism, it's very hard put to find a state like that. Some religion concentrates more on the dual. Even maybe dualism, which is fine and rich, turns into fundamentalism. That turns into narrowness. We don't want to go that direction, you see. So we need to start off with dualism, and the kingdoms of heaven within need to be discovered from there. The dualism is pretty much everything that's outside of you that you can see with taste, touch, hear, and smell. And Samkhya Yoga has a good way in 24 Cosmic Principles of telling you that I've taught over years now here in the West. Some 25 to 30 years I've been teaching Samkhya Yoga as a basis for getting a handle on our inner body, a subtle body that he's talking about here. So all of this in terms of, you get to the Father through the Son, everything from the Son, that's S-O-N by the way, down or out, is in the realm of name and form. It's Maya. The higher tiers of it are called Mahamaya, Mahashakti. That's a very powerful manifestation of beauty in the heavens. That is inner worlds, the kingdoms of heaven within you, the chambers of the Father's mansion. But as it trickles down, as I like to say, and out, down means out, and it gets more and more dense, more and more gross, and physical objects start to appear. This is the word going through 4 stages. The word Om goes through these 4 stages, the seers tell us. Right on out to the crystallization of thought. The microphone, the chair, the tree, it's just a crystallization of your own thought. So that's how to explain what Rakal just told us, Swami Brahmanandaji Maharaj, when he said the universe is just a projection of the mind. That's how to understand that. that the mind has the ability to solidify things. It starts with thought, then it solidifies it into objects. And where do you find that if you're raised in today's Western climate of religion and philosophy? You don't find that idea in there. Nature is a separate reality from Brahman. It came about through evolution over millions and billions of years. And so you don't connect the two ever. And you're caught in this, either in the fundamentalism of religion or the 4,320,000,000 year evolutionary theory of the sciences, between a rock and a hard place, that is. So Vedanta wants to lift you out of that situation and into freedom again, the freedom of your own true nature, your own self. And not only does it want you to realize that, it wants you to express it further. That's called Tantra. And it wants you to perfect it. That's called yoga. But before all of that, you need to know the building blocks of all of this, all the tiers of your own being. That's called Sankhya. So thank you very much for Lord Kapila for coming along and giving us that so that we could build towards this. Funny, as we build towards it, we forget all these building blocks. See, that is, we end up in a country like America, or some of the European friends watching today in Europe, that has gone through 2,000 years since Jesus visited us, and Jesus was a sannyasin, not a savior. He turned into a savior later. He didn't have a religion. He was free of that when he walked the earth, just like these beings like Swami Vivekananda that you saw come here. Whatever the case may be about that, the free soul is an example of somebody who has known the kingdoms of heaven within, who has gone inside and seen them, has gone beyond them, and comes back and says, I'm the light of the worlds. Both Jesus and Buddha said that. And other seers, I'm sure, thought it and said it somewhere, if not in a scripture. So we're talking about Brahman, Atman, Ishvara connection here, from the highest down to the trickle-out tendency to form. The question immediately comes up for somebody sensitive, like a Gyani, a wisdom knower, why do we go into form anyway? I've been asked this question, usually by people who are suffering. That is, not people who are suffering piggishly, see, pig ignorant suffering, we know what that's about and like, but people who are suffering and they feel sensitive about it. You see, they know there's a perfect place inside of them, a perfect self, but it's not out here. And so how to bring these two together, how to live dharmically, how to balance the mind, how to have quiescence of mind and peace of mind, and then from there maybe get a springboard inward to, so this is all involution, you see. But back to Ishvara avatar connection, that's what this chart you see in front of you is about. Now I want to tie the loose ends from last week's class before we start into Brahman and meditation on Atman with this chart. You can see there it's an easy study. So we're talking about the immanent and the transcendent. There's something in between those two, by the way, called the subtle, sukshma. There's three bodies. There's an immanent body. This is what you see before you and me and what I see in you, the outer form, the apparent self. Let's keep using that word, apparent. Or non-actual is another good English word for it. Well, if you want to use illusory, go right ahead, because it's not going to offend the Buddhists or the Vedantists. It's outright illusory. So or there are other kinder words. You know, it's a projection, or it's an expression. You see, you can look for other words there to be kinder to it. But basically, when you suffer, you want out of it. And when you have higher bliss, you also want out of it. So you're talking about a middle sukshma, a middle body there, where people enjoy heaven. And this is why the Vedantist does not like heaven. My teacher used to tell me from the podium that he does not want a post-mortem emancipation. He's not thinking in terms of getting free after he dies. He's free right now. He's realized his freedom right now, and he wants to convince you that you're also free right now. And if you think that's too difficult to manage for you, then try entertaining that thought, and that'll bring this philosophy called yoga forth to you. You'll begin cutting yourself in the image. he also used to say, you can't just sprinkle a little water in baptism and or at confession and think that that's all spiritual life. That's not going to change you. You don't need water of baptism, he says. You need fire of yoga. So those kinds of words that came from him impressed me because I was feeling that kind of sensitivity that all you are feeling too as you get into Indian philosophy. Because, let's face it, we don't find anything like Indian philosophy in this world. If we find philosophy at all. You can go to the Greeks and the Romans, but they were getting a lot of their ideas from India too, in the end, before the curtain came down on them, as all opulent cultures happens to them. But the renunciation of India was their mead, was their foundation. That's why they never died when Rome and Greece did, as cultures, in power, the height of their power. India stayed humble, nonviolent, for the longest and longest of times, and beneath that humble veneer was hidden the most powerful truth in existence. The Dharma is its face, it's its expression. So when you seek for Ishvara, this many-headed Ishvara you see here on this chart, well, just look at some of that. There's Vishnu, there's Shiva, and there's Brahma right away, the Trinity. Then there's Ganapacha down the line there. There's Vashishta, there's Hanuman, there's the the two Ashvins, there's the four winds. There's all sorts of deities represented in this many-faced, many-armed deity. You know where this is from. It's right out of the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 11, I think, Vishvarupa Darshanam. And it's where Arjuna here gets his pink oatmeal brains blown all over the universe. As my teacher, as my brother used to say, see, my older brother. And he gets his mind blown because Krishna finally reveals who he is, and this is who he is. And you'll have the same experience when you realize who you truly are. Transcendent, divine, perfect by nature, in possession of all qualities and all wisdom all the time. What happened to that person that we feel inside of us, but that we're not even seeking sometimes anymore? Maybe we just don't believe in it anymore, or it, that, him, it, her. But Ishvara is the key to remembering that, because when you see the glories of Ishvara, you'll be convinced that there is something transcendent. And so the immanent is out here on the battlefield, you see. The transcendent is within Krishna, in this case, in Vishnu, right there in the middle, you see. I mean, that's why there are so many beautiful songs, for instance, written to that. Govindam Hari Purusham Dhammaham Bhajami. Govindam Hari Purusham Dhammaham Bhajami. Govindam. So that's Govinda, you see, Krishna. Coming from that root, Gopa, the herder of cows, you see, which is not just, he was nice to cows, which I think everyone should be. I have a cow walk up to me yesterday morning. I was down on my hands and knees in a garden, you see. And I've been vegetarian most of my life, and I've been nonviolent all my lifetimes, you see. And so I was down there by the fence, and this beautiful little brown cow walked up, and I looked up and I said, "Oh, how are you this morning?" You see, it's a beautiful morning, isn't it? And the cow looked at me and went 4 times, and walked away. So they said, "Good human, you got down on the 4 hands and knees. You got down on 4 feet just like me. You're all right. I accept you. You see, I know you're not going to hurt me or eat me." You see. So Govinda is not just a herder of cows, you see, it's the herder of this flock of people who are like cows, you see. They should be nonviolent. They should be giving milk to everyone, butter and other things, you see. And they should be non-threatening to one another, like cows live in herds, you see. So it's not like some joke that Gandhi liked cows, you see. Or like Ramana Maharshi had a pet cow that was supposed to have gotten enlightened in that cow lifetime by being his pet cow. You see, these things aren't just things to laugh at. These are consciousness manifesting in bodies, and it happens. Get over it, as they say. We'd like you to get over it and not manifest in a body anymore, unless you can do so with full consciousness. You know, they asked Swamiji when he was here for a while in 1893, told him about reincarnation, told him about karma, told him about living many lifetimes in ignorance. And then finally one person spoke up and said, well, Swamiji, you've been saying this all this time. Do you mean that a man should never be reborn? Or should a man be reborn again? And Swamiji came right back and said, I hope he does not get reborn again, not until he can do so in full consciousness. So, transcendental reality beyond Ishvara, you see. I mean, Ishvara is also a form in the highest of all atmospheres you can possibly imagine. In fact, Swamiji said, Ishvara is the highest concept of God that the human mind can possibly envision. There's nothing beyond it. You get to the Father through that, you see. So it's good that people are following the path of bhakti. It's good that people are increasing their devotion. It's good that they're meditating with the mantra and the name of the Lord. Those are all good things, good spiritual principles that we need to bring back and introduce into our minds if we become alienated from them again, to increase our devotion. But it doesn't belie or take away the fact that there is, as Swami Brahmananda just said, a reality that's beyond the mind's power to envision, no matter how high the vision is. Well, Arjuna is getting a lesson in that here. And as you know, if you read the Gita, then you're well schooled in it already. But all of these great faces and arms kind of blew him away. And he said, oh, Krishna, please return to your two-armed form again, when he saw this. Pick up your flute and put down all your arms. You know, get rid of the sword, as they say, and just pick up the flute again, or the reins of my horses and be my chariot driver, you see. Whatever it takes, turn to your two-armed form. And so he did that. The whole thing happened with just a touch that Krishna gave to Arjuna. Just a touch. Nobody's vouchsafed for us where he touched him, you see. But we know how he touched him. It's called hasta diksha, with the hand. You give initiation into a higher realm. There are teachers who can do that. And there are other kinds of diksha too, mantra diksha and so forth. We have a chart on that, of course. Many kinds of dikshas that happen. You can get diksha in a dream, swapna diksha. Manas diksha, like Sri Ramakrishna did to the young Narendra, young Swamiji. I can't meditate. Well, keep trying. And so Sri Ramakrishna thought about Naren and asked Mother Kali, please help him to meditate. Then across the river, Swamiji's at his house there, the young Naren, and all of a sudden he can, meditate well and better. So there's a great soul thinking about you. There's also a kind of diksha. Try and get them to think about you. Do something to get their attention. Shoot up a flare, inside. Say, oh, Ishvara, are you there? So the quote here, and let's move on because I think I've made, all the rest of this is just the names. There's Prajapati, Ganesha, Chandra the moon, Surya the sun, Hanuman the monkey god, Sapta Rishis, the 7 rishis, of which Swami Vivekananda was supposed to be the first of the 7. He's supposed to preside over Brahmaloka, the 7 realms. The 7 rishis preside over the 7 realms. So all of these words and all this imagery here has deep, deep philosophical significance, and religious too. So all of that is there, and then all the arms are filled with weapons. Those are the divine powers. I've written 2 books about that. My 2 earliest books are called 10 Articles of Sri Durga, for instance, is a book. Small book you can read about what the symbology of the conch is, and the noose, and the goad, and the mala, and so forth. And you can see what that is and meditate on it. Such as, oh, look at what's in his arms. Okay, let's leave now. Those things are, important things for you to meditate on because those are God's powers. I have a chart on that too, should we get to it. All-pervasive Brahman right there in the heart, see? So you get to the Father through the Son. That's the all-pervasive Brahman at the heart of everything. And Ishvara is its finest expression. Its finest expression. And when Ishvara comes in the form of avatars, it doesn't change Brahman one iota, they say. Brahman is unchanging. Ishvara changes from age to age, obviously, because we've seen great Ishvara forms come, like Prajapati and the 7 rishis, and later on in time, Buddha and Christ and Ramakrishna and so forth. They change their form, chameleon-like. They're karma chameleons. But this one Brahman stays the same through it all. It's the all-pervasive beneath them. Let's just take the quotes from Svetashvatara Upanishad, which in my opinion is kind of an expert upon Ishvara. It has some of the choicest quotes on Ishvara in it. A collection of them. The only thing, you need a teacher for it, because sometimes you don't know when they're talking about Ishvara and when they're talking about Brahman. And that's also all well and meet, because the two are so much alike. The divinity of Ishvara is so deep and so high and so sweet and so transcendent that you're almost looking at the form of God when you see it. And that's why they say, when I look at Jesus or I look at Ramakrishna, I'm looking at God in human form. Quote is, "Though the Lord, the cosmic projector of the heaven and earth realms, is one and indivisible, yet he is the real owner of all eyes, all faces, all hands and feet in the gradated universes. It is he who inspires them all to do their respective duties in accordance with knowledge of the past actions and tendencies of these various beings." They're manifesting with qualities and characteristics, also karmas. You can't really go anywhere or do anything without some karma, without an ego. So these are necessary for embodied life. It's just a matter of, if my karma, has it gotten bad, or has it gotten mixed, or has it gotten out of hand? And has my form become unhealthy, or become attached to it, my ego and so forth? That's the only rub the seers have with name and form. Otherwise, have a nice divine expression life. You see? It's like saying, have a good day, have a good divine expression day. You should say to people, you see, to remind them that this is the purpose for God in form, that you are God in form. Vivekananda used to say, mankind is just God walking around on 2 legs, and the sooner he realizes that, the better it'll be for all of you out here. You see? Like the man said, if we're all at our best, it would be a beautiful world, wouldn't it? If we were all at our best all the time. Swami Vivekananda used to say, if you're not in that at your best, don't go out the door of your house that day. Wait until you're back to your best. Now I can go out. Because if you go out and act when you're not your best, that's when this karma gets out of hand. That's when imbalances happen. That's when dishonesty goes on. That's when war starts to take over, and violence, and becomes like natural to people that they live these kinds of adharmic lives. They think they're fine. People who are religious think they're fine, that they're actually the Antichrist walking around on 2 legs, as it were. See? If their ego's in charge, then they're dangerous. That's how Vivekananda put it one time. I don't trust anyone whose ego's in charge. I only trust those who have surrendered themselves to God. And since you can't surrender yourself to Brahman, you have to surrender yourself to Ishvara. Or in the case of SRV, Ishvari, we worship the Divine Mother of the Universe. And so she also has her one with Ishvara and Ishvari the same. This is the feminine divine, that is, whose time has come. And we call her Mother Kali at a more transcendent level, but of course she has all her faces too. Lakshmi, Saraswati, Tara, Goddess of Compassion, and so forth. On and on they go. Even the Buddhists, even the Jews and so forth have their version of Divine Mother whom they worship, somewhere in their scriptures, if not pronounced, then hidden. Svetashvatara Upanishad also says down below, as we wrap up this beautiful chart, with hands and feet everywhere, with eyes, heads, and mouths everywhere, with ears everywhere, he exists, pervading everything in the many universes. And higher than this personal Brahman is the Supreme Brahman. who attracts intelligent souls toward the highest goal of mukti. And that's liberation, it's your true nature. Without feet, it goes everywhere. Without eyes, it sees everything. Without ears, it hears all. Though this impersonal Brahman is changeless, it seemingly grows beyond its own nature to formulate the objective universes. By the grace of the personal God, the aspiring soul becomes free of sorrows and transcends all desires. I know this omnipresent one, who is concealed in the hearts of all beings, and by knowing which one becomes free of birth and death. Nectar, music, poetry, highest philosophy blended in to the Svetashvatara Upanishad by a great rishi called Svetashvatara. He was a grandsire of a race of illumined souls who came after him. And he was probably at the end of a lineage, heritage that came before him. See, mind-born sons. This is why I say when they pass away, they'll store their knowledge, self-storage, and they'll go back and get it in the next lifetime, and they'll turn it into something that's digestible to the age, and to people of that age. And this is what you see in Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, in Holy Mother, Sri Sharda Devi, and Swami Vivekananda, and the Ramakrishna order, making it all digestible to the age. The highest teachings, yet in so many languages, and through the original scriptures of India. There's this, as if there is no time. There's just this changing face of human beings trying to realize their true nature. Some with tears, some with smiles. The ones with tears may be better off than the ones with smiles. See, it's Maya. So, Ishvara, always a beautiful and inspiring topic. In fact, I was just singing about it again. Angani asya sakalendriya vritti manti pashanti panti kalayanti chiram jaganti ananda chinmaya sadhu jwala vigrahasya govindam govindam maripurusham amaham bhajami. And we go on singing like that. There are other verses to that. It's actually rather a popular bhajan, it's called. There have been some popular musicians who are spiritually minded who have taken this and rendered a version of it. George Harrison of the Beatles, the wife of the famous jazz musician, saxophone player. That's their name. Huh?
Alice Coltrane.
Alice Coltrane, yeah. It slipped my mind. So she had a version of it with a beautiful violin opening, and that's really haunting. So people have taken this and expressed their devotion to this ancient soul, this archetypical soul called Shri Krishna, who is manifestation from Vishnu, who is Ishvara personified, and who comes again from age to age, he says, in the Gita, tells that. Yuge, yuge cha dharmasha, I come again for the destruction of the old, tired ways of thinking, and for resurrection of the new. What did Christ say thousands of years later, after Krishna came? I have not come to destroy the words of the prophets, but to resurrect them. See? So certain things have to go, move it out of the way, get thee behind me, and then this new Dharma can rise afresh because it's eternal, so you need to remove the green scum, you see, from the lake so you can see it again. That's yourself in there. You're the author of this wisdom. When you become one with Ishvara, which is, according to some schools, not possible. Ishvara is just a unique soul. Become one with Brahman. Become one with your true self, your Paramatman. Then, of course, all of this will become readily available to you, and you'll fully understand it. And that will be a blessed day, as Ram Prasad sings. When you receive the feet of Mother Kali, you will. That will be the most blessed day of your entire existence. In fact, all your existences. Well, there you see the suras, the gods on one side, the asuras on the other side, the negative beings all battling, you see. And Sri Krishna, the avatar, Arjuna, pretty much represents humanity in its as yet immature or premature form. It's not spiritually enlightened yet. He's getting his first real transmission of the Dharma from an illumined soul. Has to happen. See? While we're on this subject, and because we have some friends watching from Europe, some students are, even as far away as Iceland, wrote the other day and said, I really like it when you said, talked about Jesus Christ and called him a sannyasa. So I thought, well, since they're watching and it falls right in line with the seers that are our eternal companions, maybe we should look at Jesus from the Vedantic eye. This won't take long because I just gathered those sayings of his that are used in the Bible and in today's religious life, but maybe looking at them from the standpoint of him being a sannyasin, that is a free moving soul, rather than one pinioned down to conventional religion or dogma or fundamentalism or text torturing, or even to the idea of him being a savior. See, because he was just a free soul. He wasn't trying to save people. He'd just go and say, sin no more. Just, oh, you fell into a problem here, let me help you, go sin no more. See, if he even used the word sin. It's funny, in Sanskrit there's no word for sin. My teacher used to say that. So it's basically that you've just forgotten your true nature, because if you knew your true nature, you'd be living in it and sin wouldn't be possible for you. Another beautiful thing about seeing Sri Ramakrishna in form, and Swamiji, Vivekananda and so forth, is that they were just going around cutting through all problems like hot knives through butter, see, and shining as they did so. So keeping that yogic awareness, that fire of yoga going. Well, let's look at some of his sayings here quickly. Do not suppose, this is Jesus from actually Matthew, do not suppose that I have come to bring peace to the earth. I did not come to bring peace, but a sword. I have come to turn a man against his father, a daughter against her mother, a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. A man's enemies will be the members of his own household. Anyone who loves father and mother more than me is not worthy of me. Anyone who loves their son and daughter more than me is not worthy of me. Whoever does not take up their cross and follow me is not worthy of me. Whoever finds their life will lose it, and whoever loses their life for my sake will find it again. Jesus. Jesus. This is the Christ. This is the Vedantic Christ. This is the Advaitic Christ. This is the world-renouncing Christ. This is the transcendental Christ. He's not a doormat. He's a doorway. Walk to him, through him, as Ishvara, the way Arjuna was doing with Krishna ages earlier, and find that same universal consciousness that's behind everything. Luke said, "None of you can be my disciple who does not give up his own possessions." Matthew again, "And the man said, 'Lord, first let me bury my father, then I will follow you.' But Jesus replied, 'Let the dead bury their dead. You come with me to proclaim the kingdom of God.'" So he's inferring there that there are people who are living who are actually dead, isn't he? Let the dead bury their dead. I mean, that doesn't make sense otherwise. So there are people walking around who are living dead. You can see where all the mummy movies and Night of the Living Dead has come from. Hollywood got the idea, now it's all over everywhere. But we're talking spiritually, that they've died spiritually, and now they're just walking around like automatons, going through the motions of convention and dogma and superficiality, and spinning their wheels and not going anywhere. And this is happening in a good society which has lots of money, and the workaday world, where everyone has jobs and has children, who are, how do you say that? Enemies of the family? Your enemies are actually in your family? Did I understand that right? See? So it smacks of Sri Ramakrishna and things he said too. There are 4 evils in your life. One of them's money, and the other's errant children, and the other's a lawyer, and the other's a doctor. Because in India you saw people giving all their money away to these 3. Doctors, lawyers for court cases, doctors for people who were rich and ate too much and ate too poorly rich food and so forth, and your errant children who just want you to die so they can have your money and they don't have to work for it themselves. This is the bluntness of an avatar. He's not mincing words. He's coming and telling you how it is so you can transcend your family. Let's go back 550 years before Christ said this to Lord Buddha. What was he trying to do? Get you off of the cycle of your ancestors. That was like the penultimate reason he was here, I would say, is to convince you and make you realize that you're on a wheel with your ancestors. And that wheel can be the kings and queens of Europe for 2,000 years, going through the Crusades and the French kings and queens and the beheadings, and the whole shooting match is one big wheel that just keeps going on, and you're caught in it, whether you're a prince or a pauper. And so Buddha wanted you off the realm of your ancestors. And he was speaking mostly about India at the time, because he lived in India, you see, and didn't leave it. His minions after him left it, and that was wonderful that they did. Went all over the world taking that message of nonviolence in the most beautiful spread of religion we've ever seen, Buddhism. Didn't end up to be all that popular. It's got the least amount of adherents, I think, of most of the 7 or 8 religions of the world, but it's got enough to show us that there are people out there who are thinking in a way like the sannyasin thinks. The sannyasin from Jesus right on up to Swami Vivekananda. I belong to the oldest order of monastics in the world, he told the people at the part of religion. Like the first, second, or third thing he said, I welcome you, I thank you, from the oldest order of monks in the world. That's where I come from. It's called a sannyasin. Christ was that, I think. Birds have nests, foxes have holes, but the Son of Man hath no place to lay his head, said Matthew. Matthew also said, and everyone who has left houses or brothers or sisters or fathers or mother or children or farms for my name's sake will receive many times as much and will inherit eternal life. Luke said, for what will it profit a man if he should gain the whole world but lose his soul? You've heard that in popular songs in the West in the 60s. I remember somebody who made a song out of that. Some lady, folk singer, you see. Don't ask me for names right now. I'm thinking only of the sannyasins' names. See, but what will it gain, or profit a man to gain the world and lose his soul, you see? And Timothy said, guard what has been entrusted to you, avoiding the world and its empty its empty chatter, and the opposing arguments of what is falsely called knowledge. Avoid those things. And guard that's what's been entrusted to you. How about your own soul, the well-being of your mind, your peace of mind? Those things you guard. And in other words, here, as by Mark, he said, render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, but give unto the Lord what is the Lord's. Spiritual things, such as worship and obedience, give these to God. For these he demands from you as his right, and by doing so you will offend neither God nor Caesar. Like I said last week, be a good little conquered race. Be a good little conquered race, you see. Why all the revolutions and rebellions and all that? Don't you know that the conquerors come and go? They'll get tired of you after a few years. A Gandhi will come along, kick the English out of your country, and you'll be fine again. Or will you? Someone else will come along and try and insinuate themselves. That's going on all the time. So what do you want to do? Guard those things that are precious to your eternal life. Because out here is not lasting. It's always changing. We call this Maya. Buddha called it samsara, cycles of birth and death and ignorance, without knowing your Buddha nature. Or in Vedanta, without knowing your Atman. So you see powerful things. Let's go on to Atman and meditation. But this ties up some loose ends and brings in some beautiful thoughts for Westerners who are looking into dharmas from ancient India, and now also from Tibet, and teachings from China and Japan, that basically all based there in this Sanatana Dharma, this eternal truth. So with that said, we want to go on to the connection, how to explain Brahman and Atman for the rest of our class. This is your eternal companion that's hard to reach, as I was saying in the last two classes. So it's a far cry for people to even understand that there is a formless reality that you can't see, taste, touch, hear, and smell. You see, because Krishna says it very well right there. The Svetashvatara Upanishad echoes it. You see, it moves everything on feet, but nobody can see that. You see, it sees everything with no eyes. It hears everything, but it has no ears. So it's going to be harder for you to also look upon this, find this indwelling eternal soul. They call that in Sanskrit antaryami. Antar means inner, yami means ideal. The inner ruler, immortal, seated in the heart, is how the Vedantists translate that word, antaryami, from Sanskrit into English. The inner ruler, immortal, seated in the heart. So you'd have to look inside to find it, you see. But you're not. You're looking outside. Eyes that see, ears that hear, nose that smells, tongue that tastes. It's all external life, isn't it? And what did he just say about external life? You see, and external families and external children and so forth. In your own Christian nation, what did he say about it? In your own religion and tradition. We don't have to hearken all the way back before him, thousands of years to the Vedic times, to know that they were thinking the same thing, and that all these rishis think the same way. Rishi means a seer of truth in Sanskrit. So how would we get to Brahman? Through Ishvara, an avatar. So one's with form and one's without form. So this is where meditation comes in as your eternal companion. The connection between Brahman and Ishvara will it will behoove you to take to meditation. That's one of the four yogas. Action, and then meditation is inaction, right? Then you have bhakti, which is devotion, and you have knowledge. These are like four split into two twos. Usually people argue about it. Devotion or knowledge, which path should I take? Well, why don't you just fuse them? Because if you don't fuse them, you'll be confused, you see. And that's what people are, who are just consider themselves bhakti without any knowledge, or dry gyanis without any bhakti. This is part of Vivekananda's message of integral yoga, synthesis of yoga, purna yoga. This is what he wants you to do. On the other hand, then you've got this much more difficult problem. Knowledge and devotion, you could probably agree with me on that if you stretched a bit. See? Even the narrow people, you see, could understand if they were explained to them. But action and inaction, that's been something that confused Arjuna and that Krishna had to explain in the Gita, and people still don't understand that sloka in the Gita. Action and inaction. You see, that person who knows action and inaction in action, that person truly knows. What are you saying? You see, you have to get at it. So in order to get at it, you're going to have to practice the art of inaction. That's called meditation. So to practice meditation, and here's leaving the realm of the black and white for a while, so you can see what we're starting to do with a few of these important charts. You see this offering of Vivekananda's, who, this might as well be the single most important and true and authentic view of a form of Ishvara who has given us like a template for meditation. This very, like his master, Sri Ramakrishna, who only had like 3 pictures taken of him in his lifetime. Vivekananda had many more. Sometimes they caught him in a state like this. If you take this, like Walt Disney Studios took Sri Ramakrishna's photos for us and cleared it up and saw we could all of a sudden, through all the old imperfections of early photography, cleared that away, and we could see Ramakrishna's eyes were rolled up in his head. And we could see all of a sudden what ecstasy was in, and that nobody could fake that, or pretend it. But this man was gone, absorbed in God. So much so that one Swami said to me once, and pointed that picture, that's the first time God was ever photographed. Beautiful saying about the Samadhi picture of Sri Ramakrishna. First time God was ever photographed. It's just like, really, you just saw Ramakrishna disappear, and God came into that form and took it over. Well, that's much the same as here with Swami Vivekananda's meditation pose, we call it. Many of us have this on our altar. Millions of people, in fact, have it on their altar, and they meditate on it daily. They use it as a template, like I said, for an example of what it is to meditate on the formless. I mean, he could be meditating on Ishvara here, too. So sometimes you feel like a nut, sometimes you don't, you see, as they say in the commercial. So sometimes you feel like a form, sometimes you don't. So it depends on where your meditation takes you. But you can see that's kind of for the rest of the half I want to look at this eternal companion in terms of Brahman and Atman. Because he's meditating on his Atman inside, and that's at the very heart, the inner ruler, immortal, seated in the heart. And that's leading him to Brahman, as if there's almost nothing in the way to that. That you, when you meditate, should sit down and say, I am Atma Brahma, this self is Atman. And this Atman is then Brahman. So I am Brahman. You see how I am Atma Brahma leads to Aham Brahmasmi. Those are 4 of the greatest sayings in our tradition. 2 of the 4 of the greatest sayings in our tradition. I am Atma Brahma, this self is Brahman. And it leads to Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman. So you see, as you meditate on this, the distinctions disappear. The lines of demarcation between matter and spirit go away. And that's a broad spectrum. But when matter goes away, then all of a sudden you find prana, life force. Because man does not live by bread alone, he lives by life force. If you want to bring Jesus the sannyasa back into it. Then when prana goes away, that is your breath stops, you can do that consciously, by the way, it's called kumbhaka, then mind comes forward. And you've been thinking that you're a brain all this time. And when mind all of a sudden shows itself to you, then you know the kingdoms of heaven within you. You never met them before. You never believed in them. You never visited them. You never knew that your dreams took you into the kingdoms of heaven within because you weren't conscious about it. So giving it up, the 5 sheaths again, like my dog tearing apart the coconut in 5 layers. You get rid of the body, you get rid of the prana. That is, get rid means you transcend in meditation. And then finally you come to mind, and you see the kingdoms of heaven within you, and then you come to intelligence. What's behind mind? What's going to help it get beyond itself, like Swami Brahmananda was saying here? It realizes that the world is projected by the mind, and that's dharmic knowledge that most people don't know about. But once I realize that and get to the mind, then you're going to ask, how do I get behind this mind? Because it keeps producing worlds. And pardon me, I've been in the bath, I'm clean, I want to get out. That's why taking care of one of my siblings, you see, had MS, could put her in a bath, you see. Went over later to get her out, So I left her in there too long once. She's in the bath. She says, how are you doing in there? And she says, I'm clean, I want to get out. So that's what happens to a soul who's sitting in dirty bath water too long. You see, dirty bath water means life. He just told you, didn't he? Did he renounce this life for eternal life? Renounce your parents, your children, beings who aren't into spiritual life, renounce them and get your own P's and Q's together. And that is the only way to compassion. We say, every man for himself, it sounds like. But the only way to really help people is to renounce them. And then you get your P's and Q's together, then you can come back and be a force for actually helping them. Before that, you're part of the problem, as they're saying nowadays. You're part of the problem. And it's so evident in every walk of life, in political, business, families, that people are just getting in each other's way and in their own way too. So to have the avatar, Ishvara, Atman, Brahman connection to your real eternal companion, which I've waited 3 weeks to say, is to have this ability to meditate and do away with these coverings. So once you get to the mind, after having renounced prana and bodies, physical matter, then mind takes you to intelligence, and intelligence will show you the Atman. You just hone it for a little while. As you hone it, you'll see there's an ego behind it. And as soon as you do away with that ego, you're free. Nobody can find their ego, right? So, well, let's work on our egos now. What am I going to do? Well, let's see. I'll be a better person, you see. I'll give up coffee. You know. I'll try and take away a few things that the ego likes. But that just pisses it off. And it kicks back on you, right? So how do we work with this, that we don't even know where it is or what it is? The sense of self, the separate I maker. Lord Vashishta called it. One of these great beings we saw through his rishis, you see. The separate I maker, he called it. Well, then through meditation, and my point being here is there is no meditation in life, there's just action. So the opposite of action is inaction, and we don't know it. The opposite of form is formlessness, and we don't know formlessness. So we're either scared of it, we believe it doesn't exist. Even though we go into it in deep sleep every night, somehow we think there's no such thing as formlessness. Or if we're really superstitious, we say, oh, there's this void at death, like the atheist thinks, and you're just nothing. How can the soul be nothing? And where did the soul that's occupying your body right now come from? Is it nothing? You thought it was created out of dust? That's metaphorical. I mean, I actually like that metaphor because I think bodies are dust in the end, because my teacher's teacher said that to us. Holy Mother, she said to my teacher, Swami Sheshananda, my guru, she said to him what is all this fuss about the body? It's just a few pounds of ash in the end. Well, ash is dust, see? Well, why should I respect it? And why should I think myself to be that? I came from from somewhere, and I'm going somewhere. And as long as I'm in a form that's coming and going, yes, it's a dangerous proposition, birth and death, see? So this all begins to inform me of deeper life. Even if it's at first critical. At first it's like, this is scary. We had a young teenager in here the other day doing some I Ching on some of the books, and she thought it was, forget the word, it's like creepy, you see. She's like, wow, this is creepy, you see. She's being showed something about herself by opening up a spiritual book and reading it, and it pointed right to some problems in her life. This is creepy, she said. How's this happening? See? So when there's a time coming for this, then you might be creeped out a bit, you see. You might have these considerations, and that's your ego's doing. And that's why you want to attenuate it. If you were in a room like this, and you're outside the room, and this was all empty, and you blew up a balloon in here, you couldn't get in, right? Because there's this plastic lining on the door, you see. The room's empty and no one's in it. That's the ego. So you have to attenuate it, deflate it like you would a balloon, so you can ease yourself into the room, maybe have a prasad dinner like we're going to have in a little while, here in this room. So we deflate the ego, or pop it outright, or attenuate it by degrees, slowly. So that's going to be one of the necessities for your meditation. I must say here that when I talk about meditation, I talk about an hour a day, maybe. 2 hours a day. 1 hour at the beginning, 1 at the end. Don't go on these 8-hour meditation retreats and blow your head out of the water. You're not ready for that yet, as a Westerner particularly. Just do your hour every day at the same time, day and night, and do some japam of the mantra with it, as he was telling us here in the first thing I read today. And that will attenuate your ego. If you try and blow it out of the water, it's going to hide and rebel and come back at you later with twice the force. And that's why we're not seeing any real progress being made in the Westerner today in meditation. Where are the enlightened souls? If you find them, to whatever degree they are enlightened, they're probably not going to 8-hour meditation retreats, probably just keeping up their practice a little every day. And they're balancing the yoga of action and inaction, like Krishna is saying in the Gita. That one who realizes action and inaction and action, they're the knowers of Brahman. It's called a balanced mind. So, too much renunciation or, not good, you see. Too much extremism, not good. The middle path is what they advise. So, this chart demonstrates for us these two kinds of meditations, which are so crucial to people. One with form and one without form. That is, let's call them the two forms of meditation, but they have types. Each of them have 4 types. This is my own gathering, it's my own creation, my own composition of meditation, because I was never told how to meditate by my teacher, and I think they, in a sense, you can see the wisdom to that, because you cannot teach meditation. The soul has to do it on their own. You can only steer them in the direction. And then when they come back with things that scare them or that bliss them out, then you say, wait a minute, not too much bliss and not too much fear. Please, thank you. Stay in the middle. See? Like if you have great experiences in meditation, they'll pass. See? Don't get attached to them and you get depressed later. Or if you have fears in meditation, know that the teacher is going to tell you that's because your mind is not in a sattvic condition right now. Wait a few weeks. So keep meditating, and you'll get back to these great experiences in meditation again. See? So you have to have someone there watching you, guiding you through this very tentative, very subtle process of meditation on Atman and Brahman. This is why they want you to get to the Father through the Son. You have to have an ishtam to protect you, because the Guru can't be in there with you all the time, you see. So you got to have an inner guide. What are we calling that? The eternal companion.
Oh.
One said Antaryami, one said Ishvara. So that's all right, it's all correct, but I was looking for that phrase that is the title of this series. That's our eternal companion. So that's going to protect us in these inner states. And it's so important that we have them. So I put this together so that you'll know that if you're meditating on Brahman, and let's go through it in the 10 minutes we have before the break. And I remember I have to make an announcement too just before we end. These two forms, one with form and one without form. Now we know Sri Ramakrishna said God exists with form, God also exists beyond form. And God exists beyond all of that too, as something that you cannot name or mention or describe. Like Nirvikalpa Samadhi that Swami Brahmananda just said in our quote. But here you see, if you want to put this in Sanskrit, it's Saguna Brahman and Nirguna Brahman. If you're meditating on any kind of form, whether it be your guru, your baby, if that's who you take as your ishtam, sometimes the young mother has to do that. All her love goes into the baby, so that's her ishtam, might as well be. Or whether it's a seer, a great seer, or out of the past, or an Ishvara form like Krishna or Christ, that's all Saguna Brahman. Sa, guna means with qualities. with attributes, with forms. And then nirguna means, just like nirvana, it's been made extinct. I've gone beyond form, I've gone beyond name. And in name and form are dwelling in time and space, right? So you've gone beyond time and space too. So these are the two great subdivisions. So here you see it here. Meditation with form, saguna. Meditation beyond form, nirguna. And the Om sign right in the middle, nicely placed. And souls are going both ways, all the time. Even if they're not enlightened, they're going both ways. Death is formlessness. For most souls, it might as well be, because they don't have any remembrance of themselves after death. They don't know what bardo they're going to, if you want to bring in Tibetan Buddhism. They don't know where they went. So they're just born again. They don't know who they are. Maybe their whole life they don't know who they are and where they came from. That's why people sometimes ask, where did I come from, Mommy? Who am I? Sometimes a question like that arises, and there's no one around to tell you. Why? Because they're enemies. Your family are enemies. They're enemies to your enlightenment. They may be good people. They may be helping you with other things. They may be leaving you their money. They may be standing beside you while you're getting better and helping you heal. But to your spiritual life, they're enemies, because they're still egos, and they themselves have not found the truth. You shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. Where are the free people? Where are the free parents? Where are the free children then, as a result? So, again, stark truths that Vedanta and Buddhism and yoga and other great darshanas of the world bring out, so that you can face them off, because they're tied to your ego and your pleasure zones. They're tied to the Bhoga Marga, not the Jnana Marga. Marga means path, Bhoga means enjoyment. Do you see what I mean? If you're tied to the Bhoga Marga, the path of enjoyment, which this culture in this country certainly is, most of its people is, then the Jnana Marga is far distant to you. The Dharma does not suggest itself to you in this life or any other lifetime. And then you ask me, or you complain about these many lifetimes on a wheel that nobody ever wakes up, and you complain about that because you have some sort of naivete in you, or sensitivity, or emotionalism going on. But there it goes on again, and you're not getting off it. What can we say? So, pick up a meditation practice. You see, try and get your mind a little pure first before you enter meditation. Do the early exercises. So what you're going to do here is, once you have your mind somewhat under your control, pratika, pratima, Vivekananda says. By meditation upon those objects which are most agreeable, the yogi's mind attains blissful equipoise. Who said that? Patanjali, the father of the eight-limbed yoga, said that. So meditate on those objects that are most agreeable to you. Let's see here, I have a little stone Buddha, or I have a picture of baby Ram, you see, or whatever attracts me. I put that on my altar, and immediately my mind feels good, you see. I can even think about that altar when I go to work today. If I get into problems, I say, wait a minute, I was so peaceful this morning. Why was that? Oh, because I had a pratika back on my altar I was worshipping. And a pratika is a thought too. It's not just an outer object. Pretty soon you'll realize that the pratika is connected with your own consciousness through thought. Didn't I just say body to prana, prana to mind, mind to intelligence, and intelligence to ego? This is a connection. This is your outer being. See? This is the immanent reality leading to the subtle reality, leading to the transcendent reality that you haven't connected yet. It's also the AUM of Om, and it's also the waking, dreaming, and deep sleep that you go into every day. So these are connections you make. How do you make them? By thinking of them, by entertaining them. People used to ask me that. It was a theme a couple years ago in SRV that I kept repeating, is that you have to entertain them. How do we do spiritual work? By thinking about these teachings. You don't go out and work in the garden, and think that your spiritual life's going to improve, do you? Your state of mind might, but to do spiritual things, Dharma drops in the bucket, Lord Buddha called it, will accumulate into spiritual results. You're just going to have to give it a little time. And keep at it. How about coming to the end of our first half? Let's take one more here, and we'll finish it after. Sukshma Jnana. This was called Pratika Pratima Jnana. Meditation on objects. People do it. And this object, Patanjali says, before I leave it, doesn't necessarily have to be a religious object. I remember humorously one Swami told me, "Oh, mantra, yeah, it's important to get your mind balanced, but if you don't have any real reverence for God's name and so forth, then just say Coca-Cola, 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 Coca-Cola over and over again." Why? Because the mind stops thinking about all the other problems that you have. It's all of a sudden concentrated. Might not be around the best thing yet, especially if you were like me when I was a boy and took my chemistry set at Christmas and put 3 kinds of acid on tinfoil and put a drop of Coca-Cola next to it. Came back the next morning, the Coca-Cola had eaten through the tinfoil. The acid hadn't yet. So it's not the best pratika for me, or the best mantra for me, but for others it might be, because it stops them from thinking about everything else. That's basically the secret of mantra, is that it centers the mind on one thing. That's practice for centering it on the thing, right? In the beginning was the Word was with God, the Word was God. That's also 3 steps that I'm going to have to take. So, Sukshma Jnana, meditation on subtle truths. Let's end the first half with this quote by Lord Vashishta. "To come to know the methods for removing desire and how best to worship the Acharya," that's the teacher, "the seer studies those scriptures which treat Atmic reality and point the way to self-cognition." So Sukshma Jnana to Lord Vashishta is the scriptures. The scriptures are inside of you. Don't think that they're out in a book. That's what happened, and in Maya, that's what happens to everything. It ends up in its outer form. And hopefully you can get a clue or a key from that, you see. It's just all a pointer. Like the object, a can of Coca-Cola, it's just an outer object until you use it as a mantra, until you deify it. A tree is just a tree until, you quit hugging it and actually see that it came out of your own mind. So out here, you have to realize that all of this is outer form and it's reached its furthest out possible place. That's why studying the atomic particle is going to lead you nowhere, except to know that everything is consisting of particles and that they vibrate at a billionth of a second, and therefore everything's empty. It has no substance. If you find out that all objects are just vibrating particles, then wouldn't that send you to the source of the object? Well, this is what this does. Renunciation is not condemnation, it's deification, the teacher used to say. You have to deify the objects that you're looking at. Wouldn't it be nice if we all did that? Then we could say, well, if we were all at our best, it would be a better world. Well, how about if we all knew all these objects were nothing but manifestations of our own thought, and those thoughts were manifestation of intelligence, and that intelligence is a manifestation of Brahman. I think I do need to rest my voice. So, to conclude, first half, Sukshma Jnana, really, meditation on subtle truths. Let's take that into this break for 15 minutes, and we'll come back and finish this chart and look at one more on the formless eternal Brahman. Namaste.
you can begin.
And we return for the second half of the final or third class on this beautiful subject, the eternal companion, or the friend of all beings, as sometimes it's said in Vedanta. Before I start into continuing on with the Atman Meditation Brahman part of this class, I wanted to look ahead a bit, because this is the last class of this series. There'll be a weekend off. Next weekend, no live streaming, but then after that we'll appear in San Francisco, and we're starting out into the Amrita Bindu Upanishad, which is one of the minor Upanishads that have been one of the 108, but the 99 are not been commentated on by Shankara, so those other 10 or 11, if you conclude the Svetasvatara Upanishad in your assessment, were commented on. So we've been Vedanta, is Upanishad basically is what it means, Veda Anta. So we've been going into the minor Upanishads and studying them, and this is the one we will take up in San Francisco. So that's the weekend after next. There will be a live streaming class on the Amrita Bindu Upanishad, actually two, one on Saturday and one on Sunday after this next weekend, which is off. Then after that we go on with the Adhyatma Upanishad in Portland, which is the next weekend for one weekend, and then we have a retreat in Seattle on Advaita Vedanta in a Jivan Mukta, which is all about my teacher. Finally put together a really series of class and 10 very beautiful charts like these on Swami Sheshanandaji Maharaj. And we'll be talking about his state of mind and what he brought us in the West. That's going to be in Seattle. And so that's a little announcement, so that you'll know next weekend, if you look on live stream, you'll know why we're not there. We're traveling to San Francisco, and then those 2 weekends in Portland and San Francisco will have Amrita Bindu Upanishad and Adhyatma Upanishad, 2 of each. So 4 classes while I'm away, on live streaming for all of you to tune into. So with that announcement out of the way, then we should look forth into other forms of meditation. What I mean by forms is forms on form, meditation on God with form. And you see how it gets more and more refined as you go along. You were meditating on just an object first to settle your mind. Then you meditated on a subtle truth. You started hearing wisdom. You started picking up books. Think back on your own spiritual trajectory early in life, in your teens and 20s. If you began to get interested in Dharma and wisdom, then you started hearing wise sayings, and it perked your attention, and it made you more interested. So then you started looking for the source of those great sayings, and you find that they're mostly in the scriptures. And when you look in the scriptures, you'll find that many of these great teachings that were available to us, say in the 50s and 60s, when they were first becoming prominent as a young culture, that they were coming from India, and these great scriptures like the Bhagavad Gita, people had those things on their walls. I remember in the black light poster days, when the hippies were putting these things on their walls of their run-down, shabby apartments and things, there were quotes from the Gita up there. And some of the Upanishad wisdom got through. But of course this is all a lot from Swami Vivekananda's visit here in 1893. He brought the Vedanta to us, and there are some other exponents and teachers that came from India, brought Hatha Yoga, some of them, and then other things that weren't quite so worthy. And then, of course, the Buddhist incursion, as you might say, came in with Tibetan Buddhism and Zen, and those brought great teachings of the Dharma to us too. With the Vedanta, it's always been an underground river, and it's been a little bit hard to detect that flow, but when you go inside, as Vivekananda is doing here in this beautiful picture, then you will find that you're connecting deep. In fact, let's look at our eternal companion again, Swami Brahmananda, whose birthday was 2 Sundays ago when we first started this series. See what he says about meditation. Someone asks him, Maharaj, there are some who meditate in the shrine of the heart, and others who meditate on the 1,000-petal lotus in the brain, but I like to meditate externally. I try to see my chosen ideal just as I am seeing you right now. Which is the proper way? So Swami Brahmananda answered, meditation differs according to the individual temperament of the aspirant. As a general rule, the best way is to meditate in the shrine of the heart. Consider the body as the temple and see the Lord installed therein. However, once the mind becomes steady through meditation, then the aspirant can think of God anywhere, either at his side or behind him or in his heart or anywhere else. When the mind becomes absorbed, a shining light is first experienced in the mystic vision. With this vision, there comes a kind of higher and nobler joy, and the mind is reluctant to give up this joy and move onward. But if the aspirant goes further, the vision of the light will be concentrated into the form of the chosen ideal, and the mind becomes merged in his own consciousness. A very beautiful step-by-step assessment by Swami Brahmananda, the first president of the Ramakrishna order, who gives us this step-by-step meditation as if you were concentrating again on body, prana, mind, intellect, and ego. But in this way, how meditation moves forward for the sincere aspirant who's in pursuit of that truth, all the way to the point where pretty soon you're having joy. You don't want to give it up. This subtle joy and subtle peace visits you, but maybe you haven't had the vision of Ishvara yet, which, as we see by, say, this picture, can be quite fantastic, with Arjuna having his first vision of Ishvara. It can be something extremely cosmic, or it can be something very personal and subtle, very private and intimate. So Ishvara stands at the head of all form, and all forms will merge back into it, but that form itself, he says, if you persist, will merge into the light of consciousness, Brahman. So very nicely put, and kind of leads us on in this teaching of the two forms of meditation with its 8 types. So far we're looking at the first form, and this is kind of a guide I've put together for people who want to meditate and have some guidance. Because, like I said, most of us never got this guidance, even from our gurus, because meditation is hard to guide. You just tell people to do it, like children, So just sit with your eyes closed, try not to think, and so forth. And then see what happens. Well, some very frightening things can happen, and some very beautiful things can happen, and an admixture of the two as well. So the practice of meditation is working through karmas. Karmas will get dealt with. You'll see things inside of you that you don't like, and things that you like very much. Things that you're proud of, things you're not proud of. And people give up the practice of meditation because of those things they don't like. They don't want to see those. I'm not talking just about personal things. I'm talking about like seeing the ocean of suffering in meditation. That is horrible. See, and then it'll depress you for all time if you're not careful. To know that this is going on all the time, and if without the teachings that suffering is ultimately unreal, given to you by an illumined soul, then you're not going to be able to deal with the ocean of suffering. You have to have a higher wisdom from a person who's outside of the ocean of suffering, samsara sagara, and is in the ocean of ananda sagara, the ocean of bliss that he just talked about. Only when you hear it coming from the lips of an illumined soul will you then be able to say, like Ram did, hearing it from Lord Vashishta, oh, I see why there's suffering. I see how it has its place. And I see also that it's a testing ground for souls, and it will drive them towards higher life. Suffering actually drives you towards higher life, whereas pleasure often imprisons you in lower life. Maya, taking everything topsy-turvy, right? The Tantrists say Maya is that which takes something that looks positive and turns it to look negative. And it takes what's negative and it turns it to look positive. So you see whole cultures doing so-called good things that are actually bad. Isn't it? So now you have an explanation of what this Maya is, and you have a seer who's outside of it telling you that's your eternal companion. That's the first one we took up 2 weeks ago. This illumined soul who comes to tell you. Holy Mother Herset says, the real friend is the one who warns in time. That's the real guru. She was very adamant about that. The real guru, the real friend, eternal companion, is the one who warns in time. So they're not going to sit back and mollycoddle and say, it's all right, I'm all right, you're all right, or any of these other New Age mantras that says, You have a baby and you're in a house on fire, and you're a mother. Kick the wall down. Escape plan time, you see. And there may be several options open to her, but if she can't get out, she's going to turn to the wall and start kicking. Break a window or something, you see. Because you've got the Atman, and you're caught in Maya, and the threat is that you're going to lose this most precious thing in your life, the baby, i.e. the Atman. And look at how many people have lost it. And what they've lost with it. Bliss, peace of mind even, sanity. I mean, everything goes out the door, you see, when Maya comes in. So, I'm not really getting on with the chart here, but it seems to me all connected. If you find a seer who's telling you about Sukshmajan, and you hear those words, that's one of those options I was just talking about. You're getting out of the burning house on fire by meditating on subtle truths. And I myself can testify to this. I wasn't so much into this, but this is where I started. It gave me peace of mind, and it gave me longevity in the practice. And up to this very day, I don't know what boredom is, I don't know what suffering is, I don't know what depression is, but they were there in my teenage years. They were there in my teenage years. When I found the truths of India, and I started entertaining with my mind said, I kind of like this. And it never wanted to leave again. Now, that same thing will happen with peace, and that same thing will then happen with bliss, and then the same thing will happen with transcendence. See, that's what the progression is according to what he just said, right? A very astute student asks him, where do I meditate? You don't want to meditate in the crown chakra. You're not ready for that. It's like going to one of these 8-hour a day, 3-week-long meditation seminars with no guide, you see. We're going to sit here with a bunch of people who've got weird karmas in their heads together in the same room, and we're going to meditate all this time, you see. How wise is that? Should I just be going to my teacher and following the instruction? What did my teacher tell me? I want you to do a half-hour of japa a day and another half-hour of meditation. That's enough. Because Holy Mother told him, does God exist only when eyes are open and cease to exist when you close your eyes? Or was it, I'm sorry, did I misquote that? Does God exist only when eyes are closed and cease to exist when eyes are open? That's what, see, sorry. That makes much more sense, doesn't it? So, what he's saying is basically, people go into meditation, there's God, you see, and they come out and they say, where's God? But does God exist according to whether your eye flaps are open or closed? So, seeing God everywhere is one of those high stations. And so you get led there by Sukshmajan. Now, what could happen is Vyapti Upasanajan. You've heard of that word upasana in meditation again, in the West. It's specific meditation on God with form. You're going to get a mantra and an ishtam, like a guru or a seer or an Ishvara form, an avatar, and you're going to meditate. Swami Shivananda, that is the Shivananda of the Ramakrishna order, Tarak in the Gospel and so forth. He says, for many, it is best to think of God as possessed of qualities and having a form. This way their minds will become easily concentrated. Krishna says that in the Gita. This abstract meditation of people who are looking for Brahman, no, that's not for you, Arjuna. You concentrate on my form inside of your heart. Not ready for that. It's the path of the abstract, the formless, the indivisible, the eternal, the transcendent. He uses a whole bunch of words in Sanskrit, is only for a few. It's dangerous for others. So, just as we were just saying, and we've been saying this whole class, put it in Sri Ram's terms, he's an avatar. Enlightenment dawns in the mind by stages. So you must follow these stages, and you must not transgress one and jump steps. That was one of the teachings of Ramakrishna about this. You might be able to jump, good high jumper, right? You might be able to jump from the low step to the high step, but you never know what was in the middle steps when you do that. So if you manage to reach this high stage of enlightenment and it's stuck, which I'm saying I don't think it probably will if you don't know the middle steps, that you won't be a very good teacher for others. Let's just put it that way, because you don't know what the middle steps that they're dealing with consist of. See? So you should go step by step for their sake too. Because remember the 3 steps we were talking about at the beginning of the class? Dualism, qualified dualism, non-dualism. You need to come down those, you see, to speak with other people, to help other souls. The beautiful teaching in Buddhism of the 10 lands of enlightenment, the Dasa Bhumis. So basically it's that there's 10 levels to the Bodhisattva. When he reaches up to the higher levels, there's a teaching there that says, oh, guess what? At this level now, we confirm you as a very realized Buddha. There's other Buddhists talking about him. But now you're going to have to give up being a Buddhist. See? And so he's shocked. See? Why? Because you can't reach others who are suffering. There are people who are in other religions, and their religions are in decline. Your religion happens to be in an incline at this time. And this could happen to any religion in juxtaposition to any other. We're not just positing one as higher than supreme to the other. All religions are true. It's just at different times you'll see some on the incline and some on the decline. Krishna says that in the Gita. So how about you're on the incline and you're a bodhisattva and you meet this whole group of people that are suffering and you don't have the words to talk with them about it. You don't have the tools to raise them out of it because you're a Buddhist, you see, or you're a Vedantist. You're an ist, you're an ism, you see. So at that high stage, it's just an example I'm giving, at a very high stage, you have to become that universal. And this is what this is really all leading towards, this non-dual realization. Advaita Vedanta, we call it. And so this meditation on God with form is a underpinning. It's a real important step to accomplish. And what's the problem anyway? What's not to like? If you find God inside of you in a form, He's sweet, He's compassionate, she's beautiful, she is helpful, she's beneficent. Whoever he, she is, whatever form you like, that being is your eternal companion and will not betray you. Will come back again and again. You know what Swami Vivekananda said about that? It may be great that I find myself out of my body at the time of my last breath, but I will not stop coming back and helping people. I'll come back 1,000 times if I can only help one person out of suffering. It sounds like an eternal companion to me, who would take that kind of vow for you, like the Bodhisattva would in their own perspective. So Shivananda puts it very nice there, Swami Shivananda. Mahapurush Maharaj, I think they called him, was this great soul. And it means this supreme Purusha amongst Ramakrishna's 12 disciples. 16. Getting my avatars mixed up here. Might as well, because they're the same being. Well, we are in the create realm, right? And we're moving toward the acreate realm. This is a word that Swamiji coined in 1893 or 1902 when he was here, acreate. So when we talk about creationism, and that's one thing, science gets its hands on it. Then we talk about creation, that religion gets its hands on, but nobody talks about the acreate like we do in India. Acreate means there's no creation. It's a myth. What did he just say? It's a manufacture of your own mind, so how real can it be? It goes away in deep sleep. It changes in dream. It goes away at death. Why are you clinging to it as if it were like an ultimate reality? Ultimate reality is formless, and that's where he is meditating right now and where he's leading us through these things that India knows about. It's dawning on the mind by stages. So then what might happen to you, and what's happened to many beings, is Leela Dhyan. Leela is a beautiful word, it's more tantric designation, I think, than Vedic. But it's a play, a divine play of, or sport, they sometimes call it, of this avatar, these great souls. Some of them come here to sport, And that sport is the removal of suffering for others. It's an example that people can actually be free of suffering, even in the body. Now, like Sri Krishna was laying on his deathbed, as it were, cancer in the throat, couldn't even turn his body. They had to turn him, he's so weak. Somebody brushed against him accidentally, and a thrill of joy went through their whole body. And Sri Krishna turned his head to them and went, "Oh, you rascal, you've understood my secret." And so they ask him, "Well, aren't you in pain and suffering with a hole in your throat, the cancer?" "Only when I talk to you," he said. "I only feel it when I come down and talk to you. When you're going away, my mind will go back to the feet of Mother Kali and I won't feel this." So I almost felt like I had cancer there for a second. Gads. Shiva had that blue throat from taking poison. So we think of Sri Krishna in that way, that he was the Shiva of this age, that, doing away with all the poison of the world, taking it on himself. That's Avatar's bag, if you want to say that, part of his responsibility. So, anyway, I'm talking about the ending of suffering in this higher state of mind. Sort of like you having a toothache and really suffering it, all of a sudden getting attracted to a book and reading, and then you stop reading and the toothache comes back. It's like, or the headache or whatever. The mind has the ability to transcend pain and suffering of all kinds, but it doesn't think it has it. See? And it tends to vibrate or gravitate towards feeling sorry for itself and pain and depression and all the things that attend that condition. But actually it can all of a sudden just rise up and out of it. You see that sometimes people passing from the body, they're suffering, and all of a sudden at the last moment they just get bright, you see, and light comes to them. As if, oh good, I'm going to shed this form. And there's nothing to fear. Well, meditation has that facility too, is to take you to death. You're actually dying to form when you go. And you're dying to form in deep sleep tonight, but you never worry about it. Deep sleep doesn't frighten you. See? You say, oh, actually I felt really good there. I don't know who I was. Who's the word, right? Not why. But I know that I feel refreshed now. But the other night I didn't go into it. I just dreamed all night, and I felt like I was very run ragged. I was a nervous wreck that day. Tired, grouchy. So you're not afraid of formlessness. You see it sometimes. But when you get into meditation, you may be, because you're doing it consciously. So it depends on the state of your mind. So one of those states of mind is this play, this sportive play. People can get themselves deeper into meditation if they concentrate on Jesus in the manger, or if they concentrate on Sri Ram and his sport with Sita, or if they concentrate on the baby Krishna and his play with the gopis and the gopas, or if they concentrate on Muhammad and going to the mountain, whatever it is, whatever religion, Leela Jan is a kind of meditation that pervades them all. You take your mind off of this world and you put it on an inner world, basically. You do it consciously and with force. It's your decision to go there. And you might call it a kind of religious escapism or something, but they call it meditation on an inner realm that never ceased to exist. People can do this with their ancestors. They can visit and have darshan with their ancestors. They can see their mother and father or grandfather, deceased, whatever, in a dream state, you see. But they can also see them in meditation. The Indians are really big on that word darshana in Sanskrit. It means to have communion with a god or a goddess or your ishtam. And the world will go away when you do this. You'll actually see that form in your own mind's eye, they say. Or in the heart chakra, like Swami Brahmananda was saying. Well, first of all, just concentrate in the heart and see God as a form and install him there. Create a temple and put him on an altar inside of it, on a 1,000-petal lotus, see. And, or maybe 100-petal first. Then you go inside. In meditation, you actually walk up to that door, knock on it. You hear the voice inside saying, enter. You open the big chamber doors, and there's Ramakrishna or Krishna or whoever you love sitting there on 100 silver lotus, you see, beckoning you to come forward. You sit in front of him and you meditate. It's a upasana. It's a meditation on God with form, according to your vision. I've had people in India tell me the way we practice meditation here is we're informed of who our Ishtam is by our guru. Then we start meditating on her or his feet. And we maybe for weeks we'll just concentrate on the feet. And when I can form the feet in my mind, then I'll go on to the knees, shins. And I'll add the whole being. I'll stack the whole being over months until I can see the full form created by my own sankalpic mind in my mind's eye or in my heart. I practice that because pretty soon I can see the eyes and the face, you see. But sometimes that sort of like you looking at some beautiful object in a distance, you know, the sunlight and the heat and the fog and everything kind of makes it disappear and come back. In meditation, you're kind of doing that. The Ishtam's coming back, you can see it, going away. You meditate some more, it comes back. This also happens with this Agya chakra. See it? Third eye, they call it. Sometimes that'll come forward. You'll say, wow, beautiful. Should I concentrate on that? Maybe I'm going to leave the body maybe if I do. Then the thing will disappear, you see, and it'll come back. And people are having these experiences, but they're using their concentration to bring it into focus, see, into deeper in detail, and so forth. So a little bit about Leela Jan. The quote there says, Leela as God, Leela as the deities, Leela as mankind, Leela as the universe. Take delight in the Nara Leela. What's Nara? God is man. It's Narendra's name. Swami Vivekananda was named Narendra, Lord of Men, when he was born. See? So Narayagya, sacrifice to mankind. Naralila, play as God playing as mankind. See? It's almost like deifying act in Tantra, right? You deify everything, right? So this is in meditation realm, it's like, oh, I think I'm looking upon all these as gods and goddesses walking around now. They're part of the play, you see. Oh, there's an evil person playing. So, I mean, so this has facility because Charan Krishna used to say, without rascals, you know, that enter into the play of Ram and the play of Krishna and who are there in Buddhist play and the ones that crucified Jesus and so forth. Without these rascals there, you know, the play wouldn't be any fun, say. So that's just how non-seriously he's taking life. That's what that is. He's not attached to the body, he's not attached to the play. He's just a participant, as he said, on strings. And Mother's operating that marionette, you see. That meditating marionette, you see. If you can operate your ego like that, then she can operate you like that, you see. But you're going to have to get a hold of your own sankalpic projections first. So here's one way to do it. All of these are one way to practice meditation in a way that's step by step and that opens up new avenues for you and connects things. So let's look at meditation beyond form. The first thing you would probably, first type of it you'd probably encounter would be one-pointedness. All of a sudden, everything comes into focus. Sort of like those science fiction movies where, you know, people are following each other, trying to shoot each other out of the sky, you see. Or a nuclear missile, you know, you're trying to shoot it at the plane in front of you, and all of a sudden it's all vibrating, all of a sudden, now push the button, because everything comes into focus right there, see. So in that way, the mind has to all of a sudden, it's disparate, and it's dispersed. Its atoms of intelligence are not brought together yet, you see, and all of a sudden you're concentrating, and then it comes together, and that's one-pointedness. That's dharana, that's concentration in yoga. Or it's samadhana in Vedanta, a kind of meditation that's fully focused and there's nothing can mess with, you see. Nothing can unfocus it, you see. So he says here, that is Swami Vivekananda, the powers of the mind should be concentrated and turned back upon itself to penetrate its inmost secrets. Because you cannot hope for help from friends and family and society. They're all lost. Don't you know that everyone is just living in pallid imitation of everyone else? It's one song in India, you see, that Swamiji used to sing to Sri Ramakrishna. So don't you know that everyone's lost here? They're all living in pallid imitation. So who do you turn to? Your eternal companion. Where's that? Inside of you. See? There's no spirit in the sky. The spirit exists in you and I. So you stop looking outward and you look inward. And that's the first step in spiritual life. Inward, moving consciousness. Not evolving consciousness. You're involving back to your source. Not becoming, being. You don't believe in, didn't he just say, pretty soon life loses its attraction. That's because you're not becoming anymore. You can't become, you already are. You're already perfect, you're already pure, you're already beyond all your problems when you're in yourself, with a capital S. Atman, Buddha nature. So that's why we love Swamiji, and we'd like to sing with him. Narendra Shashave, Narendra Yovane, Narendra Kridane, Narendra Shikshane, Narendra Palane, Narendra Yarpane, Vivekanandate, Babate Pranjali, Yatinyustava, Pranamam Dashiti, Prafulam Satparaha, Prasunam Pravritim, Tavartam Kokilo Manogyam Kujati, Vivekanandate, Prabhate Pranjali, Narendra Shashave, Narendra Yovane, Narendra Kridane, Narendra Shikshane, Narendra Palane, Narendra Yarpane, Vivekanandate, Prabhate Pranjali, Vivekanandate, Prabhate Pranjali. O Vivekananda, your message, transmitted from the platform of highest meditation, is for the realization of the soul and the good of the world. By reinterpreting and coalescing the four yogas and making them accessible and understandable to humanity, you have destroyed the foundations of ignorance in this age and ushered in a new era. In this auspicious dawn of illumination, O Vivekananda, we offer you our eternal salutations. So, one of these beautiful verses of the Pranjalihi, we call it, Vivekananda Pranjalihi, this divine awakening for all beings. Suprabhatam, good morning, you see. Suprabhatam, it's a spiritual good morning. It's like standing over a darkened humanity and introducing to the Sun of Enlightenment, saying, good morning, for the final time. You'll never have to see the sun rise and set again. The sun of illumination is upon you now, forever. enlightenment, moksha, mukti, kaivalya, sampragyata, nirvana, satori. Call it what you like. It's upon you, it's in you, and it is you. See? And this coalescing of the four yogas culminates in this frosting on the cake. The subtlest and probably the last one to mature would be meditation. And when I say that, I'm saying that some people are very good meditators and they haven't accomplished karma yoga yet. They haven't read the scriptures. And they don't have any love for the Lord. That's not meditation. They haven't coalesced the four yogas yet. Unless they're truly at that station of samadhi like he was. A master of the four yogas, you see. So, one-pointed meditation, it's kind of been a preamble to this, you see, is the pouring of oil from one beaker into another. That's what Tailadar means. Actually, like you're in a scientific experiment, you see, and have these beaker of oil and you pour one in the other in the laboratory, right? And it doesn't splash because it's oil. Water would splash and get wet all over. So that oil is this concentration that you have towards the Lord who's dwelling in your own heart. Not up in the sky, not down beneath you or anywhere else, in your own heart. So you turn your consciousness back on that, and like your mind was one beaker full of oil called thoughts and intelligence, problems, karmas, whatever it is, you pour it just straight into that empty beaker of Brahman. You pour form into formlessness. See? Can you do it? Because most people can't stop their thinking mind. Right? That's one of the first, well, maybe not the first, but one of the succeeding problems in meditation is I can't stop my mind from thinking now, so I'm really not meditating at all. I'm sitting here for an hour or 8 hours, as the case would be, and my mind is running riot inside, through the realm of forms, through problems, through hopes, through fears, through projections, through desires, you see. And I got up later and I said, yeah, I went to a 30-day, 8-hour-a-day meditation seminar with 40 or 50 other people in the room who were doing the same thing. You see. And they're all now back at their jobs and their lives, and not one of them is enlightened. They just have this merit badge on them that says, I attended a 30-day meditation. I'm not talking about that, is what I'm saying. I'm highly critical of anything that has to do with Hatha Yoga and anything that has to do with meditation, because these are facsimiles of the real thing in the West right now. They're not showing signs of moving on away from the body, and they're not showing signs of getting true enlightenment. They're ego posturing, writing bios and things about how great they are, or not. So when you have a Vivekananda before you as an ideal, and you look back on the great souls like we've been doing today, like Jesus and Buddha and others, and then you have your ideals. These are Ishvara forms, these are avatar forms, these are eternal companions, and most reliable because they're your very self. This is the connection between Atman and Brahman. We already know Atman's not the body, and we already know it's not the 5 sheaths, including the ego. So then, if knowing that, then what is it? Who is it? Who am I? That's Atman Vichara, the question Ramana Maharshi used. From who and I, you get to there I am, and then you get to I am. That I am. So, Tailadarajan, turn the mind back in on itself like a one beaker of oil flowing into the other. Here's your instruction, your first instruction for non-dual meditation. If you've arrived at any one of these and you've gotten fulfilled or prepared by God with form, and you feel like going on, you feel like it's ready, and your guru tells you you're ready and he's there to help you, try that. Try one-pointed concentration. It's the first type of formlessness that's safe for you. Next is Svarupajan. Then maybe you'll be able to find the inner self, that strange, elusive animal, you see, that no one can find, that everyone hears about, and some people even pretend that they've realized it, you see, but don't act like it after. the inner self, the Atman, Buddha nature, whatever you want to call it. It only happens when you separate yourself from nature, so I might want to use that as a measure. Am I separate from nature, or do I still think I'm nature? Nature means five senses, body, objects, food, desires. Everything that happens in the realm of name and form is nature, either manifested or unmanifested. So here's a measure for you. Myself is beyond all that. In fact, all of that came out of myself, my mind self, see. So if I can't tuck that all back in with concentration and then work my way to my essence, then formless meditation's not going very well for me right now. Thank you very much. And I need to persist, see. Then I need to increase 1 hour to 2 hours meditation. I need to sit longer. There may be several reasons for that. One being the rascally ego keeps insinuating itself. It's, oh, you don't really want that. Here, come back here. Got jewels and glittering things and false gold and so forth for you. But you say no, like Lord Buddha did. And he says here, the self is the master of the self. Notice that the first self is capitalized and the second is lowercase. The self is master of the self. Who else can the master be? With the finite self subdued, one obtains the sublime refuge, most difficult to achieve. So this is beyond body, mind, energy, thought, and ego. It's beyond that, or it's a very high type of meditation. It's essence meditation. And how successful can you be at it in any given meditation is rather the question. And you may have to go back to your Ishtam, you see, back to God with form, and again, storm the gates of formlessness. Go back to your Ishtam, then storm again. See, your eternal companion is both of these, but one's formed and one's without form. And the one, if he's true Ishtam, the one with form is telling you, go to the Father. Get enlightenment. Why are you coming back to me? He's not a savior. He's an exemplar. And he wants to send you forth to formlessness, because once you have that, you've reached your true self again. Guess what? You see, you're enlightened. That was the whole point of life. Of all lifetimes was that. But you're caught somewhere. See, and Sri Krishna said these rivers all come together. Did I use that story last week? Where all the rivers come together at the bay. It's called a confluence. And the sailor's trying to get out to the ocean. He gets all these tides and eddies, you see, are there, and he can't get through that bay, gets caught there in his sailboat. That's you trying to meditate on formlessness. With 100 other considerations flowing in your head. So this is why if you purified your mind through sadhana and certain practices, meditation would be more natural for you. And you may be born in the next lifetime as a good meditator. And people go, that's not fair. See, that's not fair. How come I can't meditate and that person can? Because they had mastered that in a previous lifetime. Duh. Get a clue. How else is God is just, with his grace, just hands it out here and there. And Mother maybe, but not God. Formless meditation comes. You're beyond Mother's realm. This is you. You as Mother. Why do our favorite line out of our song, we started smiling at each other right away, right? Because, oh goddess, oh meditator, become the goddess. We like that line in that song. Oh meditator, become the goddess. So there, that's self-realization. That's your eternal companion. Welcome back to that eternal refuge called you, with a capital Y. S with a capital S. The self with a capital S. Buddha know the difference between Atman and Anatman. Between the Buddha nature and the ego, ahamkara. Well, can it get any better than that? As we move our way down this chart, Brahmakara Vritti Dhyan. These are nice many-syllable Sanskrit words that probably you'll have a hard time putting into English, but it pretty much means direct meditation on Brahman. It's not meditation on Ishtam that much anymore, nor either on your essence, your Atman, but you're going straight to the source of Brahman. This is where Atman disappears into Brahman. The classic Vedantic and Buddhist meditation, although used in different terminology, is that. It's probably the best way I've heard it said is a hailstone falling in an ocean. Or, that's Shankara. Or Sri Ramakrishna said, I became a salt doll, and I decided to measure the depths of the ocean, so I walked into it to see how deep the ocean was, because no one had ever come back to say how deep it was. When I got in, I dissolved. There was no more me to come back. So the salt doll story is in our tradition as this example of formless meditation and how it just breaks down everything. And so I recall Swami Brahmananda said, that state cannot be described. You'd have to know what Ananda or bliss is like. You'd have to be the sweetness in sugarcane juice, is another thing he said. Brahman is the sweetness in everything, but you can't see it. It's not evident where it is. It's like trying to take whiteness out of snow or wetness out of water. You see, those kinds of impossible things come to mind when you think about try to conceive of something that's inconceivable, like Brahman. But still, we need to entertain that, because it's something that we're headed toward, at least if you're serious about dhyan, meditation. Dharana happened back here. That's the sixth limb of yoga. But the seventh is dhyan, meditation proper. So you're getting towards samadhi, the eighth and final limb, when you meditate on Brahman. It says here, Shankara, remain quiet, indifferent to the body, and by that one thought of Brahman, become one with Brahman. Now that's going to take a very pure mind with an advanced aspirant to do that. And maybe to sit down every day and start off. That's where you get these teachings from the Advaitas and the Zen Buddhists, is that when you quit your seat that evening and you go to eat and rest, that didn't happen. When you sat back on your seat the next morning, you were just picked up exactly where you left off. There was no break in between leaving your seat and taking it again the next morning. It's seamless. It's homogeneous. There are some words in English that can give us a sense of that. Seamless, homogeneous, non-dual, inseparable, indivisible, akanda satchitananda. I mean, there are plenty of words for it in Sanskrit, but to communicate it in English, you're going to have to think of that one state. And that's why this quote of Holy Mother that I misquoted for a second back in the first half was, does God exist only when your eyes are closed and cease to exist when you open them? That's very explanatory of that particular state. It's because you see God with eyes open then. And then you see that everything that kept you from seeing God with eyes open was Maya and was your own doing, was your own ignorance. It wasn't God's fault, it wasn't the devil's fault, it wasn't religion's fault, it wasn't anyone's fault but your own. Maybe it was a little bit of fault of your family who didn't help you get out of it. I'm joking. Back to Christ's sannyasin teachings. But you need to remove those coverings and those influences from your life in order to get free. It's very important teaching, not very well digested or followed, though, that teaching. I think that we can have the world plus Brahman too. It's not possible. I don't have to do it again, do I? Oil and water. You see, because this is how the world and God do not mix. They seem to, and that's your delusion right there. And 45 seconds or so, see, call it 45 lifetimes, see, that you will think that you can have God in the world too. But you cannot have God in mammon. Even Christ said so. You cannot mix the two. It's not wise. You'll be confused, because one is sentient and the other is insentient. Can we please get that straight? That nature is insentient. There's no mystery in it, there's no miracle in it, there's no hope in it. It came out of your mind, and your mind is impure. Dual mind is impure by nature. It's what helped the ego get situated in the body. And you use dual mind, everyone does. This isn't a praise or blame game we're playing, it's a fact or non-fact game. Let's look at this the way it is. And then assess it and admit it. Then, as I say, back to this is your doing, take the responsibility for it. Holy Mother used to say, oh, we shouldn't ever praise or blame God for the good and bad things that happen in our lives. She just said that as a matter of fact. Never blame God for the good and bad things that happen in your life. God's not involved there, especially this God, Brahman. This isn't a God with a small g. This is Almighty Father. This is Allah. This is Brahman. This is the Almighty Spirit, rightly reckoned. And that's formless, purely, with a capital F. There's nothing beyond it. It's the sweetness in the sugarcane juice, but has to be assessed and realized, you see. That's what enlightenment is. And enlightenment, when it dawns, will dawn on stages, but it'll also bring you to this plateau where you see God with eyes closed and with eyes open. There won't be any chasm between matter and spirit. No line of demarcation. Homogeneity will be the name of it, the word for it. Let's look at Laya Chintaya Dhyan, the last one, meditation to achieve immersion. We're to think then, and that really leads me into the next chart very nicely, if we have time for it, but to finish up this chart, meditation to achieve immersion, we're to think then that Brahman, the consciousness that approaches Brahman, experiences subtle stages still. If you read Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, you'll understand that before a Sampragyata Samadhi, there are 4 stages. 2 of them are divided into 2, so really 6 stages of seated samadhis that you go through. One of them is wisdom samadhi, knowledge samadhi. Back to here, you see. You're actually having a samadhi when you achieve this. It's called Sampragyata, but specifically it's called knowledge of objects and then knowledge without objects. So you've got 2 phases to it. And so with that samadhi under your belt, in hand, eventually it's preparing you for this immersion. See, like a very high samadhi is separation from nature, as I said. The father of yoga called that Kaivalya. Now, why do we follow yoga and consider ourselves to be yogis and yoginis? But when it comes to his teaching about divorcing ourselves with nature, we won't accept it. It's like we'll only go so far and then we won't accept that God is formless. We'll only go so far and then be afraid of giving up our bodies. He called that abhinavesha, clinging to life. Shall I go back to Christ's teachings and we'll go through this again? You see, fear of death, clinging of life is keeping us from formlessness. Our true nature. See, that's how attached to nature, thus bodies, we are. How much of a habit it is in us. It's become a samskaric habit. It's become a river that souls flow along, called samsara pragbara. That's the world of suffering you're talking about there. Suffering and enjoyment mixed. Oh, guess what? I mean, you can use it for Brahman in the world. You can also use it for the mixture of suffering and joy, suffering and pleasure. So, what I'm saying is there might be obviously some stages to this immersion process. Like it's just like you're going back and forth between one-pointedness and Ishvara for help. Your Ishtam, you're also going to be going back and forth between these other states and realizing that there are some very subtle steps to immersion. Like the hailstone is falling, right? And then it hits. Then it's starting to get absorbed. Then all of a sudden, zip my lips. There's just oneness. So those are 4 levels of the hailstones falling into the ocean, isn't it? I mean, you can take Sankara as a metaphor and say that. As it falls, it's thinking, I have to give up my individuality. So there's fear, there's trepidation, there's not knowing who you are or what's happening. So you might just decide to dissolve before you hit it and go back to Ishvara. Let the sun suck you back to the cloud or something, you see. But you're falling, you see, and then pretty soon if you're committed to the act, that is the inactive act, then you fall towards the ocean and you hit, you see. And that first impact is another stage of Brahman. Now I get to see Brahman. I might call that the vision of Brahman. Then when I hit, I start to melt. But I'm not fully absorbed yet. So they call that stage absorption in meditation, in Brahman. But immersion, that's, the game's over, basically. All games are over. You're back to your source and you realize the whole thing was a dream. If you have a boat in that ocean, then you start singing, row, row, row your boat. Life is but a dream. Whatever the case, you realize that the whole thing was a projection out of the collective mind. And you escaped it. Escaped the Bhutas, that is, the human beings. You escaped the ancestors, the Pitris. You escaped the Asuras and the gods and goddesses and what's a good name for it? The Titans. There's other good names for that Asuric level of India has. And he also escaped the Trinity. And he went beyond the Ishtam, right? You went beyond Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, and you got into your own self again. The same self that's in Brahman, Vishnu, and Shiva, you've become. You may not become Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva because there are 3 great souls that are standing at the head of this whole projection. Projecting it, sustaining it, and dissolving it. As if all of those souls were one hailstone. So you can't do that, you see. But you can return to your source and become the indivisible ocean of Brahman that you are. So that's immersion, you see. So this is why I'm trying to explain the subtleties here, because otherwise it might look like it's the same thing to you, or you won't be able to make a distinction. Not that the soul can make a distinction that easily when it's caught in this. You see, sometimes this is a guide. It's a piece of paper here. You see, it's instructions from the seers. But when you experience it yourself, of course, will be the final measure, as I was saying. But there are 3 stages even inside of this. You dissolve the physical, bhuta, laya, chintaya, jan. Laya means dissolution. Pralaya means ultimate dissolution. So this world will go and this universe will go and go into pralaya. And then it'll go into mahapralaya, all worlds and universes will dissolve. So this world has its own dissolution. But when this world dissolves, this universe of space or time, the ancestor worlds aren't necessarily going to dissolve, nor are the gods and goddesses worlds going to dissolve. Another one of these physical universes will come out of their thought process and will circle for 4,320,000,000 years, and that's not very long in India. So laya simply means dissolution. So if you add bhuta, then all the things that are in the world, physical objects, are bhutas. Objects, bodies, people, so forth, are all bhutas. Ghosts even are bhutas. Anything formed on a physical level is a bhuta. So you dissolve that. Then you dissolve the antakarna. What is that? 4-fold mind. That is dual mind, dualities that you think about, you dissolve. Thoughts, you dissolve. And chitta, so that's manas and chitta. Then you dissolve buddhi, the intellect that thinks, that has the thoughts. And then you dissolve the ego. Very hard to do. It's at a very high level when the ego goes, because the ego is having bliss, as he said here. So you don't want to give up that bliss. We're not talking about the happiness of the ego people are enjoying out here. We're talking about a spiritual aspirant who's gone into a ripe ego and is having ego bliss. Asmita, it's called in yoga. There are beings who are clinging to their egos because they don't want to dissolve into Brahman. They like it right about there. See? And people who are attached to their Ishtams, the Vaishnavas, the Shaivite, whoever's attached to the great avatars and souls as being the highest, that's where they want to stay. More power to them, there's nothing wrong with it. But if you're talking about Antakarna Laya Chittajan, Antakarna Laya Chintayajan, you're talking about the dissolution of the very foundation of projection. The mind, the collective mind, even the cosmic mind has got to go. No more projections of any kind. It's like going up to Lord Brahman and saying, you have a very nice creation there, but I want out of it. I'm clean, I want out of the bath. I've been in it long enough. It's like Swamiji saying, the world is a gymnasium for souls. Flex your muscles and get out. Build them and get out. Use them to get out. Don't stay in the gymnasium. Whew, what a world. See? Jak Samadhi or something. Now, the last thing that you dissolve would be Omkara Laya Chintaya Dhyan. You have to dissolve the original cause. You're talking about the cause, we were talking at the break about cause, the causeless cause and so forth. Brahman's the causeless cause, but in between there's this cause which is the origin of all things, which Jesus told John about. In the beginning was the Word is with God, and the Word was God. This was a sannyasin talking to somebody who loved the sannyasin. And so he told him that, and John meditated on it the rest of his life. He ended up evidently even in a cave meditating on the dissolution of the original cause, to get beyond the Word. That's just, you can't think of anything higher than that once you dissolved it. The hailstone, doesn't even question anymore what formed it up there in the sky. It's just dissolving in its essence. Or it has dissolved in its essence. No cause will bring it back again. So then you know why Brahman's called the causeless cause. And by other beautiful names, like the unseen seer, the inactive agent. I have a chart on that I could have brought. But it's obvious too, are we about out of time? Because it's obvious too that we touched upon Brahman and Atman with this chart. The final quote down there at the bottom, Vivekananda says, I'm sorry, yeah, Shankara, Sri Devi says, the practice of meditation will lead your mind to such one-pointedness that you will not want to give it up. But don't just seek God, see God. Does God exist only when eyes are closed and cease to exist when they are open? Simply quiet the mind and practice. Ishvari was the manifestation of Kali in this age, Sri Ramakrishna called her. And lived right up into the 1920s, you see, after Sri Ramakrishna had passed in 1886. So she carried forth everything that he wanted the world to have, and the Ramakrishna order itself. She was the mother of the Ramakrishna order, and worshipped by Swami Vivekananda, Swami Brahmananda, and other great saints and seers, worshipped by her. I mean, they sing about that sometimes. They just say, Devim prasanam pranatarti hantrim yogendra pujam jugadharma patrim tam sharadam bhakti vijnana datrim daya swarupam pranamami nityam. Means in English, O Sharada, propitious goddess, killer of misery in souls resigned. The savior of religion in every age, by saints and sages worshipped, O Mother kind. Give us love and wisdom, thou, O grace incarnate, to thee we bow. She's the Ishta Devata, the the Ishtam, the Ishvari form of this ashram here. See, as my teacher's teacher. And so when we hear her words from an apparently simple Bengali woman, that sometimes is a village cat that rolled in ashes to conceal herself, Sri Ramakrishna said, appearing as a simple village woman. We hear the mother speaking to us through ages. And very powerful teachings come forth. You'll not want to give up meditation once you get the right order and the right feel of it. And don't just seek God, see God. He wants you to go into meditation as if, oh, meditator, become the goddess. Not say, oh, God, shall I approach you? Or, do you exist? Or, no, I doubt you, or something. But just say, I am that. And sit and take on this new perspective around yourself. Ripen your ego, at least, and get to these deeper and finer forms of meditation in stages. There's no hurry. You've got a lifetime. Use it wisely and move forward. Get that enlightenment in stages. Even if you don't reach the goal in this lifetime, 1 or 2 lifetimes of bliss more, and you'll see God. Because the closer you come to that, the more your life gets transformed. And if you want to take another 1 or 2, so what? You'll be able to deal with suffering. You'll be able to deal with misery. You'll be able to deal with karmas of others and so forth. You'll be a blessing on your family like she was, although they didn't recognize her. Even when she became the wife of the famous Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, her family then grabbed her for themselves. They didn't say, oh, you're the mother of the universe, would you enlighten me? They actually became selfish with her. They wanted her for themselves. So she was born into a family of, well, shall we go back and study Jesus' teachings again? You see how they're against you, no matter who you are or what you're trying to do. You can kind of call that fair faces, false hearts. Fair faces, false hearts. So may our true family, our Dharma family, those who I'm sitting amongst with here and those who are watching live stream, the Dharma family, they don't have karmic bonds with each other. May they come forward into my life. And may blessings abound then among us and lead us to the highest truth. Om Brahmanandam Paramasukadam Kevalam Gyanamurtim Dandaititam Gagana Sadrisham Tattvama Shadi Laksham Ekam Nicham Vimalamatchalam Sarvadi Sakshi Bhutam Bhavatitam Triguna Rahitam Sadgurum Tan Namami. Om Shantihi Shantihi Shantihi. We salute the leader of our souls, through whose grace our ignorance is dispelled, who is beyond good and bad, pleasure and pain, and all other pairs of opposites. We recognize that one as the only witness, the eternal companion to the changing phenomena of this universe. May we through that grace go beyond all dualities, realize the truth in this very life. Om, peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us. May peace be unto all. Om Hare